Hey everybody. So today what we're going to be talking about, what my blog is over, is chips and shoes in the cities of San Antonio and Del Rio, Texas. So for the chips, it's going to be Julio's chips that are manufactured in Del Rio, Texas, and as for San Antonio, it's going to be the HEB brand chips that are manufactured right in San Antonio. As for the resources that these chips that goes into making these chips. Usually, it's nothing too fancy. It's usually corn and flour with the various spices that actually go into the actual chips that are made. So there's that. So for San Antonio, or for the shoes rather, it's going to be the San Antonio Shoe Company, and they actually have two factories in one in San Antonio and one in Del Rio. So the only difference there is that the Del Rio factory where the shoes are manufactured is a bit smaller. And so what goes into making those shoes, it's usually various leathers and different types of laces and shoelaces and rubbers, that comprise the whole shoe. So next thing that we're gonna touch upon, the next point that we're gonna touch upon, is the fact that San Antonio is way bigger than Del Rio. San Antonio is a city of 1 million plus people, while Del Rio is a city of maybe 30,000, if I'm guessing correctly. So now we're gonna look at the graphs. So right here, you can see the graph for San Antonio. You can see the size of production. If San Antonio were to make nothing but shoes for 10 hours, they would make 100 pairs of shoes. So that's 10 pairs of shoes an hour. And in a 10-hour day, it's 100 pairs. As for chips, they make about 700 bags of chips an hour. So in if they made only chips, they would make about they would make 7,000. And I apologize, the graph is mislabeled. That's supposed to be 7,000, not 700. So yeah. And so if they didn't specialize in anything, so if San Antonio were to spend 5 hours making shoes and then 5 hours making chips, the point on the graph would be 50 pairs of shoes and 3,500 bags of chips. So now we're going to turn our attention to Del Rio. And so for 1 hour, Del Rio can produce 40 they can produce 40 pairs of shoes. Oh no, 4 pairs of shoes. I'm sorry, four pairs of shoes. So for a 10-hour workday, they'd be they that's my mistake. It's 7 hours. So or 7 pairs of shoes. So in 1 hour they can produce 7 pairs of shoes, and in 10 hours they can produce 70 pairs of shoes. I apologize for that misunderstanding. So in an hour, 7 pairs of shoes. In 10 hours for Del Rio, it's going to be 70 pairs of shoes if they just produce shoes. So Del Rio just produced chips. You can see on the graph that in an hour they would be able to produce 400 bags of chips, and in 10-hour workday they would be able to produce 4,000 pairs of chips. Now, if Del Rio if Del Rio were to not specialize and spend 5 hours on each product, it would be 35 pairs of shoes and 2,000 bags of chips. So now, we went over the fact that San Antonio is bigger, and therefore it holds the absolute advantage in both producing chips and shoes. However, it does not hold the competitive advantage in shoes, in producing shoes. So while for one shoe, Del Rio foregoes 57 bags of chips, and for one pair of shoe made in San Antonio, they forego 70 bags of chips. That being said, with the lower opportunity costs, Del Rio goes ahead and takes a comparative advantage in chips, or in shoes rather, and San Antonio has a comparative advantage in chips. And so, that being said, with such a big gap in the population, I feel like Del Rio does a good job of producing chips and shoes well enough just as San Antonio produces, to keep on track with, to keep up with San Antonio with a million plus people. It is tough for that small town, but you can see from the graphs that they would definitely benefit from trade because obviously Del Rio holds the competitive advantage or comparative advantage in shoes. So they have that going for them. But yeah, that's gonna go ahead and do it for my vlog today. So yeah, thanks so much. Have a wonderful evening.